Call tonight's regular council meeting to order. And for tonight's invocation, we've got Pastor Steve Switzer of the Calvary Baptist Church.
Our Father in heaven, tonight we thank you for who you are, and we know that your name deserves glory and honor, and we thank you for allowing us to be here tonight. Lord, we thank you for your provision, even so far this year, and the things that you have done in the time with this group that is here, and I thank you for the wisdom that you give them and the way that you guide them, and I pray that tonight that your will be done in the proceedings here, and that they would see wisdom in a way that they need to, and all the decisions are made. We just thank you for the way that you watch out for us, and most of all for giving us your Son, Jesus Christ, Lord. And we thank you for all that will be done here, and may your name be lifted up. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Tom Riddle. Here. Ernie Dorchenez.
Here.
Rob Heatherly.
Here.
Bruce Jones.
Here.
Ray Coontz.
Here.
John Lawrence.
Here.
Martin Voda.
Here.
Earl Walters.
Here.
8 aldermen present. Okay, first thing we have is a motion to utilize the omnibus vote for the approval of the minutes of the previous meetings and the public hearings listed on tonight's agenda under the title Omnibus Vote Designation. Alderman Dorchenez, second by Alderman Jones. Discussion or comment? Hearing none, roll call.
Ernie Dorchenez.
Yes.
Rob Heatherly.
Yes.
Bruce Jones.
Yes.
Ray Coontz.
Yes.
John Lawrence.
Yes.
Martin Voda.
Yes.
Earl Walters.
Yes.
Tom Riddle.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0. Okay, we'll be approving the minutes of the public hearing regarding the annexation agreement with the Kirby property that was held January 7th, 2013. Minutes of the public hearing regarding water annexation agreements held January 7th, 2013. Minutes of the regular meeting held January 7th, 2013. Minutes of the Water Environmental Committee meeting held January 10th, 2013. Minutes of the Lake Airport Committee held January 10th, 2013. Minutes of the Ordinance Committee meeting held January 17th, 2013, and minutes of the Finance Committee meeting held January 17th, 2013. Entertain a motion to approve those.
Your Honor, if I may, I'd like to pull the regular minutes of the January 7th for an amendment.
Okay. All right. With that one pulled, will you make a motion to approve the remaining?
So moved, Your Honor.
Okay. Alderman Walters, a second.
Second.
Alderman Bertle. Additional discussion or comment? Hearing none, roll call.
Rob Heatherly.
Yes.
Bruce Jones.
Yes.
Ray Coontz.
Yes.
John Lawrence.
Yes.
Martin Voda.
Yes.
Earl Walters.
Yes.
Sean Riddle.
Yes.
Ernie Dorchenez.
Yes.
Now, do we want to go ahead and, that motion passes. Do we want to go ahead and make the amendment now?
Yeah, I think it probably be the proper time to do this. City Clerk Peabody advised that we need to make a change to the motion that is documented in those minutes regarding the dredging of Locust Creek Silt Area 2 bids. Is that correct, Madam Clerk? Okay. We'd like to make that amendment to read, motion to accept the lowest responsible bid of $3.50 per cubic yard from Missouri Farms for the dredging of 20,000 cubic yards of silt from the Locust Creek Silt Area 2, with all work to be monitored by Lake Superintendent Jackson or his appointee. This cost will be $70,000 if all 20,000 cubic yards are removed, and will be paid as follows: 50% or $35,000 from the Lake Restoration Fund, and 50% or $35,000 from the Water Fund.
Okay, so I've got a motion to approve the minutes with that amendment. Can I get a second on that? Second by Alderman Koontz. Discussion or comments? Hearing none, roll call.
Bruce Jones?
Yes.
Ray Coontz?
Yes.
John Lawrence?
Yes.
Martin Voda?
Yes.
Earl Walters?
Yes.
Sean Bertle?
Yes.
Bernie Dorchenez?
Yes.
Rob Heatherling?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0. Okay, moving on to discussions and/or motions to approve, adopt, and/or deny, and/or table, and/or amend, and/or refer to an appropriate committee in whole and part the following listed motions, ordinances, or resolutions. We wait for the Plan Commission to come up here before we address those. So the first four are out. I believe that brings us down to the ordinance authorizing the sale of items for scraps of personal property owned by the city, this being vehicles.
So moved, Your Honor.
Okay, Alderman Walters. Can I get a second?
Second.
Alderman Heberlin, discussion or comments? Hearing none, roll call.
Ray Coontz?
Yes.
John Lawrence?
Yes.
Martin Voda?
Yes.
Earl Walters?
Yes.
Sean Bertle?
Yes.
Bernie Dorchenez?
Yes.
Rob Heatherling?
Yes.
Bruce Jones?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0. Next, we have an ordinance annexing certain territory into the city of Taylorville. This pursuant to 65 ILCS 5/7-1-8. This be the property at 1101 Springfield Road, the Jerry Earhart property.
I'll make that motion, Your
Alderman Dorchenez, a second.
Second, Your Honor.
Second by Alderman Bertle. Discussion or comments?
Comment, Your Honor?
Go ahead.
Do we have any idea how this is going to affect this particular person, or this business, shall I say, their taxes? And is this potential of putting this business out of business if they are still operational? Have we checked into any of this?
They've been, through the normal process, they've been aware of what was going to happen tonight, and so they have not approached us with concerns.
What
Correct?
about the tax?
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Is Mr. Earhart still alive?
No, not the old man.
So this is the son?
Well,
Still owns it?
If I may, Mr.
Yes, please.
Being that I go way back out there as a floor manager for the skating rink, old Mr. and Mrs. Earhart, I'll say to that nicely, both of those are deceased. Jerry Earhart then was their son that came into being with it, and then he has in turn passed it on down then to his son, and
Okay.
that's who is evidently running it at this particular point in time. It includes the house as well as the skating rink. The house is in very bad condition. The roof is caving in.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
John Lawrence?
Yes.
Martin Voda?
Yes.
Earl Walters?
Yes.
Sean Bertle?
Yes.
Bernie Dorchenez?
Yes.
Rob Heatherling?
Yes.
Bruce Jones?
Yes.
Ray Coontz?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0. Next, we have an ordinance annexing certain territory into the city of Taylorville pursuant to 65 ILCS 5/7-1-8. And it's got the properties there. I won't read them all. In fact, I'll just read the addresses. 1129 Springfield Road, 1125 Springfield Road, 1417 North Cheney, 1422 North Cheney, and 1418 North Cheney. So I entertain a motion.
So moved.
Alderman Dorchenez. Second.
Sir.
Alderman Lawrence. Discussion or comments?
Several discussion and comments from this end, Your
Okay.
Honor.
Alderman Voda, go ahead.
As I had stated in the minutes, it stated that I was doing a little bit more research on some of these annexations. These do take place in Ward 2. There's a great concern of mine. We have four properties on North Cheney Street, three of which I believe there's no problem with. The third is the one that we are currently working with litigation. Is that correct, or possible litigation? Is that correct, Mr. Attorney?
Well, we won't know until after the action tonight, probably.
Okay, and the reason I bring it to the table is I'm not sure how much money we've invested in this. The tax dollars that would be brought forth to the city are minimal. MFT funds that are being brought to the table as to what we pick up. I've talked with Superintendent Wiseman a little bit about this. We've currently had problems getting an increase in the funds coming in from the motor fuel tax. Did a little research on that. The motor fuel tax has been substantially dropping since 2000, and currently, from last year to this year, what has been presented to the municipalities has decreased 3.63%. The total that was allowed to be given to the municipalities was $271 million. If you go back to 2001, we were at 293 million, substantial change, and it was slowly been dropping since then. I have done a little driving also. We have annexed certain properties. I've been approached by Mr. Breckenridge, Dick Breckenridge. We annexed some property out by his house, which is northwest of Walmart. We picked up 1.2 miles of road there. We picked up Broadus Road, which is a half mile of road. We picked up Langleyville Road, which is 1.2 miles. At this time, I don't know where the money's coming from to maintain these roads. Motor fuel tax is not doing what it's supposed to be doing. With people decreasing their travels, we're not getting the monies to come in. In Ward 2 alone, we have projects. Park West needs to be resurfaced. City Park needs to be resurfaced. We need maintenance on those roads. Kenmore Addition, we're in the process of doing major renovations on those roads. And of course, we have the high school area also. When we keep bringing these roads in and we keep bringing these annexations in, there are hidden costs associated with this. I want to be very cautious when we do bring these roads in. In the northeast section of the city, we annexed a substantial amount of property, hoping that Tenasco would come in. We're responsible for those roads. We've got to be very careful how we're annexing. With this particular annexation, we have one property that is, and I don't know if we want to release the name, I don't know if it has been publicized, that we're currently in negotiations with on a potential legal issue, correct?
The remaining,
That one property,
right.
okay. With that, I believe there's also issues related to potential sewage problems that we have a heads up on that we may have to address once we bring them into the city. Street lighting, we have ordinances. I'm not sure how that works. I've made a few calls today. We may be obligated to put street lights in every 400 feet, which is a substantial cost now to the wards as we have to do that. In the annexation agreement, it states the city may, at its sole discretion, annex. It doesn't say we have to annex. And it also states that we are entitled to terminate. It doesn't say that we have to terminate. I think this is something that it needs to be looked at every annexation that we are looking at, and make sure it is the right thing for the city. Not do it because we can, but do it because it's the correct thing to do. So with that said, Your Honor, I will be voting no on these annexations. We've got 1 out of 5 or 6 that we aren't even sure if we're going to be able to annex without litigation. So I see no financial benefit for the city at this time. We also are looking at the 28th, we have a special city council meeting, I believe, scheduled to discuss the either new or renovation of the existing water treatment facility. I'm assuming those funds, for any borrowing we may do for those projects, the funds will be paid back out of the water fund. Once we bring these various users of our water into the city, we cut that water rate in half. So we have 50% less going into that water fund, which is going to be monies that will be utilized to pay back any loans associated with what we need to do. So again, I'm going to say I'm going to vote no on these annexations because this is not at this time in the best interest of this community. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any other comments from anyone? Alderman Dorchenez.
You know, this council had decided quite a while ago that what we would do is we would go forward with the annexation of those properties that really are part of the city of Taylorville, that are in the city, that should have been annexed years and years ago. Don't know why they were not. At that time, you voted yes to go forward with the annexations. If you're going to look at each and every property, and I don't have a problem with that, you need to realize that the taxes that are, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Treasurer France, but when you annex a piece of property, there's real estate tax that's generated. Okay. In addition to this, you're aware that that the fire station, the new firehouse that we have over there, is being paid for entirely by telecommunications tax.
Utility tax.
Okay, so when you come into the city, you're gonna be paying telecommunications tax. So you would be supporting the payment of that building. You mentioned MFT. There is MFT funds available because of that increase. There's something called a per capita tax. Part of your state income taxes is also generated and paid into the city's coffers. The utility tax, obviously, is also a tax that the city benefits from. There's also something called a local use tax. If you have a business, there's a sales tax that's generated. You're aware that recently we annexed the property out in the northwest with RP Lumber, et cetera, which is going to generate revenue for the city, much needed revenue. In addition to that, at the last city council meeting, as I recall, you didn't have any problems with bringing in Bernie Kirby's properties, which is the entire Boffman Road. I'm guessing that there was just 2 parcels of land that was annexed, but there's probably 20 individual lands out there on Boffman Road. And you mentioned about the water plant. The water plant, the money that is going to be used if we decide to go forward to rebuild the water plant that we've got or build a new one, those funds have to come from the water fund. It's called an enterprise fund. We recently had a finance committee meeting. As you well know, the city borrowed in the past over $1 million to keep the city afloat under difficult economic times. And as Treasurer France would tell you that we borrowed from the water fund, but it's required by law that we pay that back. This has gone on for a long period of time, and I got to give credit to Sean Bertle we need to start paying that debt back. At the recent finance committee meeting that just occurred last week, there was the recommendation from Mr. Lawrence's finance committee to pay the water fund back $50,000. I can't recall the outstanding balance, but it went from $1 million down to, is it a little over $500 million, Terry?
570,000.
So it's a little over $500,000. So, I don't have a problem debating this. I think we're doing the right thing. Everybody needs to pay their fair share, especially that are using city services. And a lot of these, for example, RP Lumber, I thought that they were, if you look out there and talk to people, they would tell you that they thought they were in the city all along. You mentioned earlier about the skating rink. The skating rink has been there for at least 50 years. As I understand it, they're only open 1 day a week. I didn't even know they were open until we went forward with the annexation. So I don't know how you can argue with that, but I guess you can.
All right, anybody else? Roll call, please.
Martin Voda.
No.
Earl Walters.
Yes.
Sean Bertle.
Yes.
Bernie Dorchenez.
Yes.
Rob Heatherling.
Yes.
Bruce Jones.
Yes.
Ray Coontz.
Yes.
John Lawrence.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-1. Let's see, did I see the planning commission's not yet. We'll take a couple more of these until they get up here. Next, we have a motion to allow the police department to purchase ammunition for the 2013-2014 year.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make that motion and comment.
Alderman Bertle, second by Alderman Jones. Go ahead with your comment, Alderman Bertle.
Everybody received a memorandum from Deputy Chief Heil in your packet on ammunition for the police department. The reason this wasn't brought to the Emergency Services Committee and was put on the council agenda was that it's come to the police department's attention that ammunition is getting scarce, say the least. The recent surge in gun sales and ammunition sales is now making it difficult for our police department to get rounds. If you read the memo, it looks like it's 13 plus months. It sounds like it'll be 13 to 18 months before we can get ammunition. The amount here, the $19,977.35, is a large amount of money spent on ammunition, but in the past, and we have some documents here to back it up. If you want to see them after the meeting, I'd be glad to show them to you. This ammunition does not come in one big lump sum. They don't bring it in on a skid and set it down. They pay $20,000 and it's over. It comes in small increments and we pay for it as we receive it. So this is just a motion to get that process started so Mr. Howell can put the ammunition on order.
Any other comments? Hearing none, roll call.
Earl Walters.
Yes.
Sean Bertle.
Yes.
Bernie Dorchenez.
Yes.
Rob Heatherling.
Yes.
Bruce Jones.
Yes.
Ray Coontz.
Yes.
John Lawrence.
Yes.
Martin Boda.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0. All right, next we have a motion to amend the Water Committee meeting minutes of the November 8th, 2012, under the heading Wireless Agreement, to state that the tower lease agreement they had with the City of Taylorville for placing antennas on 2 of the city water towers. I'd entertain a motion to Alderman Dorchenez, second by Alderman Voda. Discussion or comment?
Question.
Alderman Lawrence.
We have 3 water towers.
Right.
And which 2 would these be?
The new one and the one near the airport, the orange one.
Yeah, that's the one.
Excludes,
Mr. Dorchenez, is that correct? Those are the 2 towers we had the antennas on.
Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Sean Bertle.
Yes.
Bernie Dorchenez.
Yes.
Rob Heatherling.
Yes.
Bruce Jones.
Yes.
Ray Coontz. Yes. John Lawrence.
Yes.
Martin Boda.
Yes.
Earl Walters.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0. See, Mr. Harriman has joined us, so I would ask him to report on behalf of the Plan Commission.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. We met. It's been an interesting evening. Those of you that were down there are aware of that. When we considered the site development plan and McMillan landscape, we unanimously recommended approval of the site development plan and variance for sidewalks out there in Industrial Park. So our motion to you is to recommend approval. The Assad minor subdivision, the easiest way to describe that is ditto.
I tell you, maybe so we don't lose track, maybe each way, as you do each one, we'll take our vote, and that way we'll stay in lockstep. So I'd entertain a motion to approve the Plans Commission's recommendation for the McMillan landscape.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Alderman Walters, second by Alderman Bertle. Discussion or comment?
Jones.
Jones, I'm sorry. All right. Any comments?
Yes, Your Honor.
Alderman Walters.
I've been out to the site a few times. I've also spoke with Mr. McMillan, and I totally support the project. I think it'd be a nice addition out there in the industrial park area.
Anybody else? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Bernie Dorchenez.
Yes.
Rob Heatherling.
Yes.
Bruce Jones.
Yes.
Ray Coontz.
Yes.
John Lawrence.
Yes.
Martin Boda.
Yes.
Earl Walters.
Yes.
Sean Bertle.
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes 8-0. No, sir.
The Assad minor subdivision is also an industrial park between South Spresser Street and Bachman Road. He owns the property that stretches between the two, and he wants to divide that from 2 lots into 3 lots. The center lot will have access off of Spresser Road, and it'll be 52-foot wide, so there's no problem there. And again, variance on sidewalks, and the Planning Commission's recommendation was to approve the subdivision plat and final plat with the sidewalk variance.
So moved on that one also, Your Honor.
Okay. Motion by Alderman Walters to accept the recommendation. You get a second?
So moved.
Alderman Jones. Gotcha. Okay. Discussion or comment? Hearing none, roll call.
Mr.
Rob
Chairman.
Heatherling.
Mr.
Yes.
Chairman.
Bruce
Wait a
Jones.
minute, 1 second. Alderman Lawrence.
We've got 2 properties here that are described, and this is nitpicky, as belonging to the Taylorville Industrial Development Corporation, TIGC. That organization has been dissolved at least 6 or 7 years, and I believe the actual owner is Mr. Kirby.
Well, I think they're just talking about location. They use that, they're not talking about ownership, but just, that location place. So, good point, though.
Our presumption is that they own it, but it is a presumption.
Right. Any other questions? Okay. Roll call, please.
Rob Heatherly?
Yes.
Bruce Jones?
Yes.
Ray Coontz?
Yes.
John Lawrence?
Yes.
Martin Voda?
Yes.
Earl Walters?
Yes.
Sean Bertle?
Yes.
Bernie Dorchenez?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
The third issue we had this evening is the Bland Minor subdivision on East Bidwell Street. There is a very long, narrow lot there where Mrs. Bland lives, and she's wanting to split the back of it off. She's visited with city council members and the superintendents. They're going to have a flag lot, 20-foot access off of Bidwell that runs to the back, and then it opens up into an adequate lot where they plan to put a duplex. And after discussion, the planning commission recommended approval of that subdivision plat, and again, sidewalk variance. There's apparently other factors working along there that prohibit the sidewalk.
Entertain a motion to.
I'd like to make that motion also, Your Honor.
Second.
Alderman Bertle, discussion or comments?
Comment.
Alderman Jones first.
Okay, this is a well-respected neighborhood. There's sidewalks all over the place. Why not the sidewalks?
There are no sidewalks on the north side there, and I don't know what the other conditions are. I've just told that we can't force sidewalks. It's just going to be a 50-foot spot in the middle of the block anyway.
I can add a little bit. That sidewalk again would fall over the top of some existing city utilities. Other than that, there's nothing on the north side of the adequate sidewalk. In fact, it's wider than normal on the south side as well.
Okay, I just wanted to know the reasoning.
That's my thought.
Okay.
Alderman Voda.
Thank you, Your Honor. Is this going to be a driveway going into this, or is this just a way of sectioning off so we have?
It's going to be a driveway back into the back, like on the order of what's out there in your neighborhood.
Okay.
Shared driveway.
There's a current concrete approach right there right now.
Okay, so that was my question, Brent, was whether it was going to be concrete or expected to be rock from the street in. So we're going to have a concrete approach?
There's already a concrete approach.
Okay.
right in there.
Thank you.
We'll go down here. Alderman Koontz.
I've had some very concerned residents strongly opposed to this project. I respect the planning commission's recommendation, but I'll be voting no on this.
Your option.
Anyone else? Hearing none, roll call.
Bruce Jones?
Yes.
Ray Coontz?
No.
John Lawrence?
Yes.
Martin Voda?
Yes.
Earl Walters?
Yes.
Sean Bertle?
Yes.
Bernie Dorchenez?
Yes.
Rob Heatherly?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-1.
The last one was an interesting evening. Hathaway Homes of Taylorville applied proposed approval or asked for approval of location in the sketch map and then a preliminary plan. There was considerable discussion on this, and there was concern expressed for the ability of the Taylorville infrastructure and school system to absorb the hit of an 18-house subdivision anywhere in town. But after discussion and answering a lot of questions, the Planning Commission recommends first that we approve the location in the sketch map of the Hathaway Home subdivision.
I'll make that motion, Your Honor.
Walters, get a second, or at least for discussion?
We are approving the location.
Right.
What does that mean?
Is the site where
Where-
it's going to be adequate for a subdivision.
Okay, thank you.
So do you want to second that motion?
Second.
Alderman Lawrence. Okay, now let's open the floor for discussion or questions from the Alderman.
Comment.
Alderman Heberly.
I voted against that property being divided and then annexed into the city back, I don't know, 3 months ago.
I've made a couple contributions to the local newspaper in opposition to this proposed development. I think we all have received a petition with either 89 or 90 signature on it that says in general that we believe that said location is not in the best interest of neighboring houses and or neighbors. And with that, I will be voting no tonight. Thank you.
Any other comments from the alderman? Alderman Bertle.
I have a question on procedure. Normally, it seems like the last 15 or 20 site plans that we've had, the sketch map piece of paper that you got with the drawing on it says site plan. In this case, it says preliminary plan, and then there's a sketch map. So the process is what? What happens after tonight? Is there going to be an official site plan that gets voted on again, or is this it?
You
This has
shed
been
some
asked
light.
a couple times, and I don't think we've got a clear answer on it.
The site plan is what you're being asked to approve or disapprove right now.
Even though it says something
And
else.
after you make that decision, I'm going to report on the preliminary plan that was submitted. We split it because of the feelings of all the neighbors, and split it of the audience, so that we could have a little bit better control over what the planning commission recommends. After you vote on the site map, we'll then talk about the preliminary plan.
Well, with that being the case, Alderman Everling brought up this petition, and, if you look through here and look at the addresses, some of them are from the area which the proposed plan is adjacent to. Some of them are in my ward, Ward 4. Some of them are in all parts of the community. And I don't know how many people are in the audience tonight that come to a committee meeting or a other council meeting or a planning and zoning meeting, but we don't get very good participation. Usually when you look out there, you don't see anybody, except for the superintendents, that's it. So when 91 people take out the time to put their signature down on something they're either in favor of or opposed to, it says a lot to me. And, I think that some of the figures that was brought out in the meeting downstairs, I think, you can make those percentages appear to be whatever you want. I think this particular project, I'm looking here in the front row and see a few contractors. It's going to put these guys to work. It's going to sell some material in town. It's going to sell some food for lunch. It's going to buy some fuel. But after that project is completed, I don't know that this project's going to bring anything good to the community. And with this petition and all the phone calls that I've been getting and the letter that we recently got in our packet, I don't think I can support this at all.
Voda.
Just a quick note, there were probably 50 people downstairs, George, and
easily.
the planning commission was not privy to the petition that you're addressing.
Alderman Voda.
Relinquish the floor to my senior alderman, and then I will follow up. Thank you.
Alderman Dorchenez.
Okay, well, prior to the city council meeting, I asked the city attorney the question that, you're bringing up the site plan, you're bringing up the preliminary plan, et cetera, but, and I'll refer to this petition that you also, you said you hadn't seen. I'll read you the cover letter. It says, to the city of Taylorville, we hereby request the immediate dismissal and or relocation of the affordable low-income housing proposition that is to be built in Zone 2 behind West Park Avenue off West Elm Street by the Christian County Housing Authority. Below are signatures of citizens of Taylorville who also request the above demands. We believe that said location is not in the best interest of neighboring houses and or neighbors. This is the reason for this request for immediate dismissal / relocation of the proposition for Hathaway Homes off West Elm Street and West Park Avenue in the field. I guess my question is, if you're asking me about the site plan, I couldn't disagree with the site plan. I mean, I could approve that with changes. I mean, we talked about the sidewalks, et cetera. But where does this come into play? Do I vote my conscience the way the constituents, my constituents want me to vote? Do I vote no on the site plan because of this? I'm kind of confused on a little bit on the procedure, and maybe the city attorney could shed some light on this question.
May I, Mr. Mayor?
Please.
I think the biggest problem we have here is that the code talks in two different places about two different things, and I'm not an engineer, gentlemen, and I don't know if Joe Green was here tonight or not, but it talks about location and sketch maps. Okay, now that's what this says in Chapter 2, and then there's a separate section, and it has a purpose, and the purpose is to determine the suitability of the site for subdividing, so on and so forth. And it's kind of more of a general. The site plan, and I think this is where our confusion comes in here, is what are we approving here tonight? Are we approving a site plan? It's not called a site plan, but as a preliminary plan, the site plan, I don't know. But in Chapter 9, it talks about the site development plan, and that's intended to provide a detailed layout of buildings, utilities, other improvements. Now, I'll defer to Mr. Harriman. I'll defer, if Joe's here, or I'll defer to Dick Wiseman if those things are mutually exclusive or whether those things are to be voted on separately and whether or not a preliminary plan. It seems to me like we're going to have to start asking these contractors or engineers that put these things together to use our terminology so that it fits nicely in our code. Now, that being said, Alderman Dorchenez, I see your point, okay, about what are we actually deciding here this evening and what goes on in the future. But that's a problem I see in this whole situation, is we're not using the same lingo, and maybe that's maybe that's not a big deal, but not being an engineer, I can't tell you that it is or is not.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Harriman first, and then.
Preliminary plan is what we were going to offer our opinion on next. The preliminary plan has the street locations, it has the setbacks, it has the sidewalk locations, it has the street names, widths, and all of that information. We modified, in our recommendation, we have suggested some changes to the preliminary plan from what was presented. It seemed that what would be most logical and clearest if we approved the site plan and or location plan, whatever name you know it by, answering the question, is this area suitable for a subdivision? Yes or no? Then if it's yes, we have the preliminary plan to offer you that has the streets, the lot sizes, and all of this information that Mr. Fines is suggesting in it for you with a slight variation. We want sidewalks along Elm Street, and if it's at all possible, we would like a V gutter to guide the water down Elm Street. And it just seemed clearer to me, my doing, to say, yes, this is a good site, and yes, these things are acceptable. If you want it all together, we'll recommend that you approve the site location plan and preliminary plan subject to certain variances or certain conditions.
Alderman Heberly.
For whatever the procedure, I believe if, for myself and anyone else that has any objections to the project, we have to vote no beginning now, because if we vote yes now, it appears that we do support the project. So and I encourage any of you aldermen that if you have questions about this project, if you can't support it as far as location or for some other reason, now would be the appropriate time to vote no.
Any other comments?
Yes, Your
Well,
Honor.
let me, if I could, get the guy out here. Please stand up and state your name.
My name's Steve Cooper. I'm with Vasconcells Engineering. We were the civil engineering hired that laid out the site. I've been working with Joe Green throughout the process. He's the one who told me to go ahead with the location sketch and then the preliminary plan. And I believe because it's a subdivision, that's why we did the location sketch and the preliminary plan, and not a site development plan. It's been my experience that a site development plan is if you're building a larger building on a larger parcel, like a 5-acre parcel of property, where we're actually dividing a parcel, into individual lots. So with Joe's direction, I put together a location sketch map, and then we forwarded it with a preliminary plan that Joe looked at and approved. So that's why we have the location sketch and the preliminary plan together. He recommended we submit it together because sometimes you can do it individually. He recommended just doing it together just to kind of speed the process up. But I mean, the preliminary plan is a more detailed plan showing the streets, the sidewalks, the utilities. That way utility companies can look at it and verify, yes, we can provide utilities to this location, or we've got a problem, we can't do it. And all the utility companies I've talked to, they seem to have the capacity to handle the development. We're capturing the stormwater, so we're not going to be adversely affecting any other properties. We've got a sanitary sewer we can tie into, and I've talked with Ted Giedel of CMT, who's the engineer for the sanitary district. He said we've got the capacity for it, so that's kind of the process that we've been following and why we've been following.
Thank you.
And then, Your Honor.
Alderman Walters.
After this, for Alderman Bertle, and you remember the process, I'm sure, they're going to have to come back with what they call the final plan and the construction plans. So those have to go to the committee, to the planning commission.
Construction plans will go to Joe Green.
Right, and then they'll be approved and come from there.
And right, what he does with them, he'll have to approve them and talk to the city, and
So that's the standard process. And when we're looking at location sketch map, we're talking the site location, location site, site location. It's interchangeable, the same thing for this.
It's addressed separately in the code, Alderman Walters.
Right, it is. That's true.
Yeah, and so is the preliminary plan.
Right.
And the site plan.
All right, Alderman Voda.
Thank you, Your Honor. In the petition we did receive, it states, "is not in the best interest of the neighboring houses and/or neighbors." I know where these people are coming from. I know what their concerns are. However, with what's on the table in front of us tonight, gentlemen, we are not looking at whether or not this is acceptable for personal reasons. We have to look and see if this is acceptable with the directives in the city code as to whether we would be able to accept this or not, or if it needs to go back out, be redesigned, and then brought back to us again. With the recommendation coming from Mr. Harriman, I would have to say, yes, I have to accept this. Do I agree with the project at this time? I would say, no, I do not. I have a lot more in the way of questions, concerns. People have more questions and concerns. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more discussion before we get to that point to make the final decision. But what's on the table, in my opinion, gentlemen, is the fact that they have presented to the City Council a plan, or you want to call it a sketch map, whatever you want to call it, that meets the requirements of the City of Taylorville per city code. And with that said, I think we do not have, but you can vote no, but I don't know what your argument would be if they're meeting all the requirements.
Mr. Mayor?
Alderman Heberlein, and then let's vote.
No, the argument is that we have citizens of Taylorville in neighboring areas of this project that are opposed to it. They purchased their homes and their property in the location that they purchased it because they wanted to enjoy the lifestyle that that area had at that time. A project of this size is going to impact that lifestyle. They are concerned about it, and they've raised questions about it. So I think it's more than germane to raise this question at this time. And they don't want it out there. A large majority of people, as Alderman Bertle has stated, I mean, typically we don't get a response like this. And I think that with a response like this, we have to be aware of it and vote accordingly.
Okay. Last one, Alderman Dorchenez.
Okay. I wished I had a crystal ball that could tell me what's the right thing to do every time. I don't. I also don't. I don't appreciate the fact that we give the Planning Commission the duties, the tasks, the responsibilities of coming forward with a recommendation, and then I don't take it. That doesn't make sense to me. But in this situation, I don't think that the commission was, I think you were looking at what you were supposed to look at, the site plan. I don't think you were looking at what the citizens of Taylorville, and this is just a small amount, 90 people, but I have not had any other issues, as long as I've been on the council, that I've ever had a petition brought to me with this many names on it, opposing a project. And so I'm looking at this, scrutinizing this and trying to make the right decision, and it's a hard decision for me. I want Taylorville to have jobs, and these are going to create some jobs. And here I'm trying to say no. That doesn't make sense either. But there were questions about the schools. There was questions about the taxes, that the properties are not, they're going to be insufficient to, they're not going to be sufficient to support what's out there. So I'm going to vote no.
Let's go for a roll call.
I realize that this has gone on a little bit. I haven't had an opportunity to talk because I didn't want to steal anybody else's thunder.
All right.
But I will keep my comments as brief as possible.
Okay, please.
Okay, thank you for the latitude. We've already had the Arlington homes. They're down there. They've been up for 3 years now. There's nothing wrong with any of those homes. I don't believe we've had a bunch of police calls down there. Same thing down in the Galveston area. It's also in Ward 3. Haven't had any more police calls, fire calls, other than what would be considered normal in any other area. I have on my phone about 16 pictures of rundown homes between Cheney Street and this proposed project that look, all they need is a bulldozer, I guarantee you. But our federal government seems to be in a horrible, horrible position right now. And that's, we have to borrow money to pay our bills and operate our government. 30 cents of every dollar that the federal government borrows goes for entitlement programs and federal aid to other countries. Some of those countries don't like us very much, and they allow terrorists to infiltrate our country and attack us on our homeland. That doesn't make sense to me that our federal government is continuing this downward slide. Over the last 7 years, 5 years, our deficit has grown from $238 billion to over $1 trillion a year. We're already looking at raising the federal spending debt ceiling, which has gone up over and over and over and over again. It just doesn't make sense that we're continuing to hand out money when we have to borrow money to do it. That's not good business. And for this country, it's not good business for our country. One of the things that I think really swayed my vote was Mr. Is it Copley? Okay, I thought it was. And I've spoken to him before, and when he's presented these other programs, I've been in favor of them. They've been in good locations, and they have enhanced those areas. People are worried about their property values. That's a valid concern. But the thing that really swung my vote for the way that I'm going to vote is, he said 99% of this money comes from private investors. Some of those billionaires, such as Hathaway, you see Berkshire Hathaway, he mentioned their name, and other investors who get 10 years of tax write-offs, then they get interest on their money back for developing these homes, which the city of Taylorville, the school district, the other entities, the county, whatever, have to then maintain the roads, maintain the area, provide police protection, fire protection, and all of that. That's another government handout. That's another government handout that these people are making more and more money, and I realize that this is a hand up more than a handout. But after looking at the information that's been provided, the sentiment that has been proposed in this petition, it's going to be really hard to vote yes for the preliminary sketch plan when I'm not in favor of this project as it stands. I think it's a great location for a subdivision, privately funded, but not publicly funded. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Glad we got the short version.
Yeah.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Ray Coontz,
No.
John Lawrence,
No.
Martin Voda,
Boy, you're making it tough on me, aren't you? No.
Earl Walters.
Yes.
Sean Bertle.
No.
Bernie Dorchenez.
No.
Rob Heatherling.
No.
Bruce Jones.
No.
Okay, recommendation fails, 7-1. So is there any need, there's no need to go to the other, right? Location's no good, then we move on.
Thank you, Mr. Harriman, and your committee.
Yes. All right, getting back on track here, I believe we're ready for the attorney update.
And I will be brief, Mr. Mayor. The only thing that no.
Okay, just kick
I
the
had
ball.
that was going to be my comment anyway, Alderman Jones. Anyway, make long story short, the only thing I have to report on, Mr. Mayor and Council, is that, Alderman, that all the alcohol sting fines have been paid in full, and all the agreed orders have been executed and put on file with Clerk Peabody. Those are the alcohol sting fines. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone got questions or comments for the city attorney? Okay, moving on to mayor updates. Real quickly, I know we've got some guests out there, some students. Would you students just please raise your hand? They're with Lincoln Land here, and they're here to monitor the class. They're here tonight. So, and while I've got that, I would like to ask, how many of you live at home right now? And if you had the choice in your community to have a house, and the federal government was going to help you, would you be interested in a program like that? Interesting. Exactly. Well, other people do have family members that would apply to these things, and these programs are so beneficial to people in that situation to get them started. You're always going to have the not in my backyard crowd, regardless of what you do. Every program we've ever started in this town, the people around the area that are affected say, I'm for it, but do it over there somewhere. These people that may have voted against this or signed a petition against this, they may tell you, well, I understand we need that, but if you were over across town, I wouldn't care so much. But here it bothers me. And it's rare when we get these chances to have this kind of, I don't care if it's federal money or wherever, it's going to go somewhere. This was a very competitive thing with over 55, I believe, entities vying for this money. They looked at the demographics here in Taylorville, and whether you like it or not, our demographics fit. They said there's a need here, and that's why all the communities applying for this is why you're one of the 3, I believe it was, that actually got the money. And I think we have to understand that. The option is you can insulate yourself and have a better lifestyle if you make it too expensive for poor people to live here. And so we can lift ourselves out of the mud by saying, hey, we're going to raise taxes, we're going to have expensive homes you have to live in, or you can't live in the city of Taylorville. That's a very real choice that this council and councils that follow will have to make that decision. Otherwise, you have to kind of look in the mirror and say, what are we really? And we're on the lower economic rack of the ladder. I mean, that's proven. 1 in 3 people in Illinois is at the poverty level right now. 1 out of every 3. And that's the reality of the situation. And those people have to have somewhere to live. So I think we need to keep that stuff in mind here. If you're providing for your voters, who are some of these very same people that can't afford a house right now, and they're saying, will you please help me a little bit? Those are the same people you're saying no to when you vote down something like this. So that's the other side of it, too. Moving on, I do want to thank the Breeze and the radio station. You know, we passed the electric aggregation program, and there's been a lot of confusion out there. I've probably had 15 different calls or walk-ins, asking me, well, what's this I got in the mail about? Well, the company we chose to buy the electricity supply from, they've actually sent mailings out last week, and some people are receiving those, and they're confused with them. To me, again, it's a no-brainer. You're getting the electricity. It's not a different flavor of electricity. It's the same electricity, regardless of where it comes from, and you're getting it at a cheaper price. So I've been telling people, to me, it's a no-brainer. Ameren is still the distributor. It's the only distributor that of the people that are allowed in this program. So that's not going to change. If we have the ice storm tomorrow night and lines go down and you're an Ameren customer, it's the same Ameren company that's going to come and take care of it. You get one bill from them and that's it. So there's been some confusion here, but I just want to tell most of the people here, to me, this is the simplest decision you'll ever have to make. Do you want the cheaper price or the more expensive price for the exact same product? And the Breeze really helped put a light on that last week when they put their story in. And the only other thing I've got is, again, as far as a fundraiser, there's one coming up this weekend at the Taylorville Memorial Hospital Auditorium, and one of our own aldermen is one of the chefs there, Alderman Jones. So if you haven't already bought tickets...
Covered in the Breeze, front page.
I don't know, and I believe Alderman voted. Didn't you do it last year?
I was in there last year. I was again asked this year, but with my schedule,
Sure.
my JOB, it was next to impossible.
Well, I've been there, and the food is excellent. So I don't know if the tickets are sold out, but if not, you might want to support that. So, Alderman Dorchenez.
I do a lot of cooking at home, but I wasn't asked to do anything.
Maybe you can supply the wine.
I think it's Taylorville's best kept secret. Okay, all right. That's all I've got, unless you guys have anything. We'll move on to committee reports. Discussions and or motions to approve, adopt, and or deny, and or table, and or amend, and refer to appropriate committee in whole or in part the matters regarding the following subject matters discussed at the committee level. And we'll start out with water environmental.
Thank you, Your Honor. First motion to come out of the committee meeting that occurred January the 10th was a motion to annex the Pettis property at 1400 North Cheney. I'd like to make a motion to that effect, and then after there's a second, if there is a second, a comment.
Okay.
I'll second that, Your Honor.
Second, Alderman Walters, go ahead with your comment.
You've all been privileged to the documentation that the attorney has provided, and there was a negotiation offer on Mrs. Pettis's behalf. And there was a legal argument presented, and I'll let the attorney speak to that. He said that they have no legal reasons why that they cannot be annexed.
May I, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just briefly, gentlemen, everybody had a chance to read my memo, and I think that the argument that was being made was that there was some type of contractual right of Ms. Pettis to continue to receive water based upon this installation of this water line years and years ago. Well, that contract was between the city and Mr. Curtis, I believe, and the letter that he alludes to basically was just Mr. Curtis confirming the fact that if somebody tapped onto the line, moved off, somebody else came in and had to pay a tapping fee, that he was going to get that additional fee. That contract has long since expired by its own terms, I assume, because either Mr. Curtis received his, 120% of the cost input, or the time period has lapsed. So there is no contractual obligation for the city, and that's the short version.
Okay. One question I just have, you talked about contracts and everything else. At one time, we had a discussion on our agreements, for the annexation water agreements, and we knew that some of them weren't out there, hadn't been signed, hadn't been updated, 20 years or more had passed. Does that matter? If they haven't signed one right now, is that something we need to have signed?
Absolutely.
Okay, so if one doesn't exist and it's not signed, are we in trouble?
Well, the thing about it is, those annexation agreements are directed at people who are receiving water, but they're not contiguous. So they agree to be annexed in, okay, when they become contiguous.
Okay. But again, if you don't have that signed, do you have an agreement?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. So I guess what I'm saying, if these folks have not signed a current agreement, is that a step we have to take first before we move forward?
No, only because, Mr. Mayor, that this council passed that ordinance that's now on the books that basically says, in the event someone is receiving City of Taylorville utilities and they're contiguous, they have a time certain to annex into the city.
Okay. But you wasn't contiguous until the action we've taken tonight, right? And this action we take tonight on the other properties is what makes her
No.
You were
Yeah,
contiguous.
they've been contiguous for 50 years.
It's been tied in with the right
Yeah.
house property.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
All right.
Because I think Clerk Peabody and I had that conversation about it being contiguous.
Sure. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
John Lawrence.
Yes.
Martin Voda.
No.
Earl Walters.
Yes.
Sean Bertle.
Yes.
Ernie Dorchenez.
Yes.
Rob Heatherly.
Yes.
Bruce Jones.
Yes.
Ray Coontz.
Motion passes 7-4, 1 against.
The next motion was to accept the bid of $25,065 from Midco Utility Supply for fire hydrants and valves for the water department, and I'd like to make that in the form of a motion, Your Honor.
Okay. Get a second on that.
Second, Your Honor.
Alderman Walters, discussion or comments? Hearing none, roll call.
Martin Voda.
Yes.
Earl Walters.
Yes.
Sean Bertle.
Yes.
Ernie Dorchenez.
Yes.
Rob Heatherly.
Yes.
Bruce Jones.
Yes.
Ray Coontz.
Yes.
John Lawrence.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
The next motion and the last motion come out of the Water and Environmental Committee meeting was the motion to accept the low bid of $19,340 from Midwest Meter for service line materials for the water department. I'd like to make that in the form of a motion.
Okay. Get a second on that.
Third.
Alderman Voda, discussion or comments? Roll call.
Earl Walters.
Yes.
Sean Bertle.
Yes.
Ernie Dorchenez.
Yes.
Rob Heatherly.
Yes.
Bruce Jones.
Yes.
Ray Coontz.
Yes.
John Lawrence.
Yes.
Martin Voda.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0. Moving on to Lake Airport Committee.
Thank you, Your Honor. Had three motions come out of the Lake and Airport Committee. Motion to increase the lake lot rental rate from $400 per season to $450, with $25 of that increase going to the Lake Restoration Fund, and increase the campground rental rate from $95 per month to $665 per season, to $100 per month or $700 per season. Make that in the form of a motion.
Okay. Can I get a second on that?
Second.
Same Alderman Lawrence, discussion or comments? Hearing none, roll call.
May I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Were you supposed to amend that regarding the lot lease information in that also?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
That can be amended if that,
I believe that was discussed, because we have to, in raising those rates, we gotta change the lake
You're
lot lease. We
correct.
gotta get it done before your next lake meeting.
okay, Your Honor, I'd like to make that a...
Just amend that and
I'd like to amend
update.
it to include that those changes in financial, the finances of those rentals be included into the lake lot
Please.
and campground lease agreements.
Okay. Alderman Lawrence, you amend yours in a second. Okay. Additional discussion or comments? Hearing none, roll call.
Sean Bertle.
Yes.
Ernie Dorchenez.
Yes.
Rob Heatherly.
Yes.
Bruce Jones.
Yes.
Ray Coontz.
Yes.
John Lawrence.
Yes.
Martin Voda.
Thank you, yes.
Earl Walters.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
The next motion was to direct Lake Superintendent Jackson to bid and/or advertise the permanent part-time position at the Lake Department. Place that in the form of a motion, please.
Okay. Can you get a second on that?
Second, Your Honor.
Alderman Walters, discussion or comment? Hearing none, roll call.
Ernie Dorchenez.
Yes.
Rob Heatherly.
Yes.
Bruce Jones.
Yes.
Ray Coontz.
Yes.
John Lawrence.
Yes.
Martin Voda.
Yes.
Earl Walters.
Yes.
Sean Bertle.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
The final motion was to direct the city attorney to prepare an ordinance implementing a liability and mandatory endorsement fee for the skydiving clubs. Place that in the form of a motion.
Okay. Get a second on that?
With a comment, Your Honor.
Alderman Walters, go ahead with your comment.
I want to thank the chairman of the committee for addressing this issue along with the committee members. We're moving in the right direction, and I think this is something that's sorely needed, and we need to keep on top of the insurance requirements for the various clubs and organizations.
Thank you. Any other comments? Roll call, please.
Rob Heatherly.
Yes.
Bruce Jones.
Yes.
Ray Coontz.
Yes.
John Lawrence.
Yes.
Martin Voda.
Yes.
Earl Walters.
Yes.
Sean Bertle.
Yes.
Ernie Dorchenez.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0. All right, lastly, we have, this is Ordinance Committee.
Yes, sir. We had one motion come out of our committee. That was the motion to direct the city attorney to amend ordinance number 3594 with the above changes to the electric power aggregation plan of operation and governance. And those for your, were in your minutes, was on page 7 to delete, assist the city in developing a smart meter program, and page 10, number 7, replace the city of Taylorville with First Energy Solutions, and delete Taylorville City Hall at 824-2101 and replace with First Energy Solutions for a copy of the plan or more information. I'd like to make that motion.
Okay, get a second on that?
Second, Your Honor.
Alderman Walters, discussion or comments? Hearing none, roll call.
Bruce Jones?
Yes.
Ray Coontz?
Yes.
John Lawrence?
Yes.
Martin Voda?
Yes.
Earl Walters?
Yes.
Sean Bertle?
Yes.
Bernie Dorchenez?
Yes.
Rob Heatherling?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0. Brings us to Finance Committee.
Your Honor, we have 4 motions coming out of last week's Finance Committee, and as they are listed, the first one was a motion to approve the Sam Taylor facade grant application for Rich and Marilyn Payne. That's at 105 South Washington Street in the amount of $2,800.
Second.
Okay, second by Alderman Bertle. Discussion or comment? Hearing none, roll call.
Ray Coontz?
Yes.
John Lawrence?
Yes.
Martin Voda?
Yes.
Earl Walters?
Yes.
Sean Bertle?
Yes.
Bernie Dorchenez?
Yes.
Rob Heatherling?
Yes.
Bruce Jones?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
There was also a motion involving the Sam Taylor facade grant applications and amounts, and these are pending the completion of the facade projects, and amounts may vary, and submission of all paid receipts. Rennie's Drugstore, 201 West Main Cross, an amount of $1,250, and A-Frame Custom Framing and Art Gallery LLC, 104 South Main, $862.50.
Second.
Second by Alderman Bertle. Discussion or comment? Hearing none, roll call.
John Lawrence?
Yes.
Martin Voda?
Yes.
Earl Walters?
Yes.
Sean Bertle?
Yes.
Bernie Dorchenez?
Yes.
Rob Heatherling?
Yes.
Bruce Jones?
Yes.
Ray Coontz?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
We had a motion to recommend the City Council to contribute $5,000 to the Christian County Senior Citizens as included in the fiscal year 2012-2013 budget.
Second.
Second by Alderman Jones. Discussion or comment? Hearing none, roll call.
Martin Voda?
Yes.
Earl Walters?
Yes.
Sean Bertle?
Yes.
Bernie Dorchenez?
Yes.
Rob Heatherling?
Yes.
Bruce Jones?
Yes.
Ray Coontz?
Yes.
John Lawrence?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
And finally, we had the motion discussed earlier tonight to approve the transfer of $50,000 from the general fund to the water fund for the repayment of our water fund loan.
Second.
Second by Alderman Bertle. Discussion or comment?
Comment.
Alderman Dorchenez.
I'd like to take every opportunity to give Burr a pat on the back for
I
the
didn't do
great
it
idea
myself,
that he
no.
had, that I don't think without that idea that this would not have come to fruition, so way to go.
I'm glad you and Spiegel got money to spend.
Any other comments? Hearing none, roll call.
Earl Walters?
Yes.
Sean Bertle?
Yes.
Bernie Dorchenez?
Yes.
Rob Heatherling?
Yes.
Bruce Jones?
Yes.
Ray Coontz?
Yes.
John Lawrence?
Yes.
Martin Voda?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0. Next, we have a motion to approve and ratify payment of bills in the amount of $158,278.86.
I'd make that motion, Your Honor, with a few comments.
Okay, we have a second. Second by Alderman Bertle. Go ahead with your comments, Alderman Lawrence.
The second cycle in the month of January, we have a list of billings of $158,278. I will mention approximately $105,600 as the bigger ticket items, leaving a balance of $52,006 being the normal repairs and maintenance and supplies that we have budgeted. First of all, this time of the month we get our direct energy billing and the electric delivery charges. Direct energy is billing us $8,433, and that's at that 05039 cent rate that we asked about a week or so ago. The delivery charges by Ameren and Rural Electric almost double the cost, $13,400. So our electric cost us $21,852 for the month. Also get hit for our fuel. Total fuel bought from the Christian County Farm Services, $12,420. That's about average for the fall and winter periods of the year. We have a neat bill from Phil Tolis out of the street department for a total of $14,878. Right at 9,000 is sidewalks and curbs in the 300 block of East Market, and if you get a chance to go by there, I went by today, and it does look nice. It's a very good addition to that neighborhood. Another 5,700 is for sidewalks on Springfield Road. That's all in front of Aaron's Battery Specialists and the old Pepsi buildings the school district now owns. And I'm sure that's probably a nice improvement too. We're paying Main Street our quarterly 60% of the hotel tax, hotel motel tax collections. That's $5,124. And lastly, I have our city engineer who's ganging up on us with $51,363. To expound on that a little bit, $39,900 is continuing the plans on our spillway bridge, which the city will eventually only share 5% of that. And $8,652 is being paid out of our sewer project fund. That is primarily for the projects we still have in process. And $2,800 is being paid out of our administrative funds. That's primarily for the work on the annexation and the site plans that we had with the Planning Commission tonight. That was $2,800. So that taking that $105,000 that again away from the $158,000, there's $52,000 budget items.
Alderman
I
Bertle.
just have a question in regards to the spillway engineering. Maybe Alderman Walter should answer, but are we getting close on the engineering for that? Because it seems like that's been going on for a long time. It's been very expensive.
Yes. The way that works, Your Honor, it's 90%, 10%, and of the 10%, it's 5% for the county, Cliff Fry, and 5% for the city. So we'll get back everything on the engineering except for 5%. Okay. And it's an ongoing project. We're working with Cliff Fry. It has to be placed on his bridge program, which is a 5-year program. We think the earliest we can have something started on that would be possibly this fall, but more likely it'll be next spring in 2014.
Thank you.
And more directly, the engineers have billed us $132,000, including this, toward their contractual $191,000 for that project.
Thank you. Other comments? Hearing none, roll call.
Sean Bertle.
Yes.
Bernie Dorchenez.
Yes.
Rob Heatherly. Bruce Jones.
Yes.
Ray Coons.
Yes.
Don Lawrence.
Yes.
Martin Voda.
Yes.
Earl Walters.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0. Okay, per Public Act 96-1473, this portion of the City Council meeting is reserved for any city resident wishing to address the council on issues that are relevant to the council. Would anyone out there like to address the council? All right, seeing no one, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved. So moved.
Alderman Voda, second by Alderman Heberlein. Discussion or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion passes. Meeting adjourns 8:12 p.m. And the students, if you'll come up here, I'll sign your papers.
I've got